1 Samuel 17:14. And right here, again, we're reading David and Goliath. And I want to show you guys something that I think is really important. All right, so here we go. 1 Samuel 17:14. Let's listen here. Have your listening ears on because I am very excited. I got so much I want to share with you all this evening. All right, it says this. David was the youngest son. There was 8 of them total, by the way. So David was the youngest son. David's 3 oldest brothers stayed with Saul's army, but David went back and forth so he could help his father with the sheep in Bethlehem. For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. That's Goliath, by the way. One day, everyone say one day. One day, Jesse said to David, take this basket of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread and carry them quickly to your brothers and give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain. See how your brothers are getting along and bring back a report on how they are doing. David's brothers were with Saul and the Israelite army at the valley of Elah fighting against the Philistines. Here we go, verse 20. Ready? This is where it's going to get crazy tonight. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early the next morning with the gifts as Jesse had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was leaving for the battlefield with shouts and battle cries. Okay, before we continue, I'm going to share with you a story because the story is going to tell us the title of today's message. When I was your guys' age, high school, okay? It was a long time ago. When I was in high school, I was in a particular class. We were supposed to read these books, okay? You're supposed to pick a book and do a book report on it. You guys ever done that before? All right, so if you're me, this is before all you guys like cool technology stuff to where you could just Google like a summary of it and like say that you read it. I picked a book thinking I'm going to read just the back of this cover and I could do a book report based off of that. I had no intention of reading this book at all. But before I knew it, I went to class and I heard everyone say, guys, book reports are due today. And I didn't even read the cover yet. I don't even know what this book is about. And I'm looking around my class and everyone's got like their cool cardboard things and things are glued on it. There's glitter, the title of their book, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I look on the whiteboard and it says the order of the presenters and I'm the first one. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, what do I do? Like, this is so bad. And so what I have to do, I have a lot of obstacles in front of me. And I'm thinking the first things first, I have to convince these other students to go before me. No one wants to do that because we're all hoping that the bell rings and we don't have to do our book report. And so I have to somehow convince them. So my first step when I walked in those doors was to find the second person and try to get them to go first. And it worked. And they were like, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, oh, that was easy. Now the second step, I had to kill time. 50 minutes in the period, and there's 3 people that go and me, so 4 total. So I'm trying, there's 10 minutes each, that's 10 minutes I have to kill. Oh my goodness, how am I gonna do this? So I looked over at the teacher, and I'm not gonna say his name in case he's watching this right now. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go strike a conversation with him so that I can waste time. So I go over to him like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, hello, Matt, you ready for your book report? And I'm like, yeah, so ready, man. So anyways, I remember you saying one time, like, you grew up or were raised or like in Africa or something. And he's like, yeah. And I said, okay, so how many languages do you know? Like what languages did you speak there? I'm just trying to make up stuff at this point now. And he says, oh, I know a few languages. And I was like, that's cool. Which ones do you know? He said Swahili. And I'm like, Swahili? I love Swahili. Did I know Swahili? No, I didn't know that. But I'm like, I love it, dude. Can you teach me? Well, Matt, you're first on the book report. Do you want to go study your stuff? No, I studied all night, dude. I'm really good. So can you teach me some Swahili words? And he's like, okay, have you ever seen Lion King? And I was like, I love Lion King, dude. And I'm just trying to think of like, maybe I should tell this guy the whole summary of Lion King just so that we can just get through this and the bell rings and I'm good. He's like, okay, so here's an example. The word Simba. Yeah, Simba. Oh, I know that one. The lion. Yes. Oh, man. It means lion. Awesome. Cool. And I'm trying to like elaborate way longer so I waste more time, but that was all that came to my mind. I was like, do you know anything else? He goes, Rafiki. And I'm like, oh, Rafiki, the monkey thing. He goes, yeah, that means friend in Swahili. Awesome. I'm hoping I keep hoping there's gonna be like some long story of like all these names, right? And I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then he said, but there's this one language. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a clicking one, and I was like, this is cool. Now I'm leaning out, teach me this language. And he taught me this word, pape. And I'm like, I will never forget that. What is that? And he said, it's a tree. It's a certain tree that we had. And so I'm trying to do this. And all of a sudden, the student walks in. And I almost said the teacher's name right now. And the teacher said, so-and-so, or the student said, so-and-so, can we go ahead and get started? I had a long night, and I just want to get this over with. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. And so he's like, yes, Matt, go ahead and have a seat. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I sit down and I'm looking at all this glitter, all this amazing stuff, and I got nothing. So I just pulled the book out of my backpack. I'm just looking at the cover. I'm like, what in the world can I make up looking at this cover? And so the person goes and I whisper to the person that's after me again. And I was like, hey, can you go? I think it's best if you go. And they're like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I think yours looks really good. And they're like, okay. So then they go on there. And now there's just one more left. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we can do this. And then the second speaker was done, like, Matt, are you ready? And the other student said, I think I would like to go because I just really want to present this. And I don't remember the thing that the girl said. It was a girl. And he was like, well, Matt, are you okay with that? And I was like, I will humbly give this to you. Yes, and ladies first, yes. I was very excited, but go for it. Go for it. So I'm letting her do her spiel, right? I'm letting her do her spiel, and she's done, and there's 5 minutes left. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, this isn't enough. I have to stall. She finishes up, and she says something that none of us ever raise our hands to. So does anyone have any questions? We never raise our hand to that. We just want to get done with it. We don't care. We weren't paying attention, right? And so she's like, anyone have any questions? And I just, Matt, you have something you want to share? Yes. I was like, are there any areas you wish the author had elaborated upon further? What did you think the author's voice and style? Did the quality of the writing match the story? It's like, where did I come from? I sounded like a genius. And they're like, wow, Matt, those are really deep questions. Yes, let's get into that. And she starts answering these questions, and the bell rings. And I said, the title of today's message, I said, perfect timing. And I got out of it for the next week, and I still didn't study for it, but that's okay. But I got out of it. But what I want you guys to understand is God's timing, especially when it comes to this story, is perfect. There's perfect timing in everything that he does. There's a lot of the times that we wake up and we go through our day and we see our day as boring or just ordinary or I don't care what's happening today, just another day goes by. But how God works is every single thing has a purpose and a meaning and a timing behind it. God, being outside of time, can see this time way better than we can, and he's put things into place so that we can hopefully see it. But so many times we get caught up with other things and we sometimes miss out what he's trying to show us. And what I want you to see here is what David did for this story to happen. The timing of everything is so important. It could have gone any other way if David would have done something different. It says this, let's go back to verse 20. It says, so David left the sheep. But why did he do that? Well, let's go back a couple more to verse 17. Ready? One day. Remember, I had you all repeat that. One day. How many of us have had one day? We've all had a one day in our story. One day, Ruth woke up. One day, Chris woke up. One day, Logan woke up. One day, George woke up. One day, Matt woke up. We all had that today because we're all sitting here. Right now, this could be a story written about you. One day, boom. And what's it going to say? What did you do with your day today? Why do you think God woke you up today? A lot of us think that it's ordinary. It's average. I just did this today. But you know what happened today? Someone came into our office today because there's someone that passed away last night. And I'm sure that family of that person that passed away last night wished that they had a one day. They would not look at each day as average or ordinary. What do you think God's trying to show you with today? This is what he's given you today. One day, Jesse said to David, take this basket of food to your brothers. Now, if that happens to us today, if our parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, whoever it is, gave you a chore to do, many times we respond with, No one else, mom and dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, no one else has to do this. None of my other friends do this. Or we say, okay, I'll do it in a little bit. And then we continue playing Fortnite and Call of Duty and all that, and Minecraft, and really want to get the diamond sword. And okay, I'll get to it. Take the trash out. Okay. And then one day later, take the trash out. Okay. Right? One day, Jesse, David's dad, said, take this food to your brothers who are at war. And this is so important to see. It says this on verse 20. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early the next morning. If I would underline, you can circle or highlight, he even went early. He did not put it off. When his dad asked him to do something, David said, okay, I'm going to do it. See, David looked at life differently than we did. He saw every single moment as an opportunity. You're going to look right now in this passage, and you're going to see there's a lot of obstacles that happen. But I want to tell you students right now, if you're taking notes, with every obstacle, there's opportunity. With every obstacle that happens in your life, there's opportunity. And there was the first obstacle of this story. He could have argued with his dad. He could have argued with his dad. Time could have gone by, or he could have said, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't have anyone to watch the sheep. He could have made up an excuse. He could have said, I'm tired, Dad. I had a long day. You have no idea what it's like to be my age. You don't even know. But he set out early. He was even responsible with the time that he had, where he gave someone else the duty to watch his job and do what he was supposed to do. He set out early. Now check this out. Went early the next morning with the gifts, as Jesse, that's his dad, had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was leaving for the battlefield. Just as, look at the perfect timing. If he would have argued with his dad, if he would have put it off, if he would have gone later than earlier, he would have missed the army going to fight Goliath, and this would not have happened. This would have been a different situation, a different outcome. But look at the timing of being obedient. Look at what happens when you hear the call of obedience. Look what happens. David has another obstacle. He sees the soldiers going to battle. He could say, well, listen, I'm just going to drop this basket of food at my brother's tent and just call it a day, go back home. But he saw something different. It says this in verse 22. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, again, responsible, and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. Again, look at this perfect timing, verse 23. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. Then David heard him shout his usual taunt. Perfect timing. He left early. Just as he gets there, they're leaving to battle. And just as he gets to battle, he hears Goliath making fun of God. We hear people make fun of God all the time. We hear people put down what we believe in. We're actually scared to tell people what we believe in or pray in front of them or bring our Bibles to school. We're embarrassed to do that stuff sometimes. We all have our own little Goliaths in our life. But why did David see it as something different? Because he had a lot of obstacles already way before this that we're about to see, and he saw them as opportunities to live for the biggest giant of all, and that's God. He said, this God that we serve is bigger than anything I've ever faced before. So by the time I see Goliath, that actually looks like nothing to me. I don't know what you're all tripping on. David was this teenage mutant ninja shepherd, and he knew what he was doing when he went there. He already fought some amazing things, but see this again. Verse 24, as soon as, again, perfect timing. As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. So they were marching there all excited. Yeah, we're warriors, we're warriors. Goliath comes out. I hate God. Ah! They run away. Goliath was a big dude. He was over 9 feet tall. Some scholars have them anywhere from 9 feet to 11 feet. Listen, I've been to the Boston Celtics when Shaquille O'Neal was playing for them. I came up to that dude's belly button. Yes, I got that close, and I was not ashamed. When I was a busser at a restaurant, I served the plate to a baseball player. His name is CC Sabathia. He was a left-handed pitcher for the New York Yankees. I stood up to him, and I came up to right below his chest right here. Those dudes were giants. They were huge. I felt so puny compared to them. And they still were not even close to as tall as Goliath was. Listen, ladies, you think you got a crush on a boy in here because you think they're macho and tough? They would run and pee their pants when they see Goliath. They'd be like, oh my gosh, nothing compared to him. I want you to picture the size and strength of this dude. But David did not see that obstacle as something to run away from. What I want you to see is God's timing and plan that he has for your life. And where we see average, God sees adventure. Where we see average, God sees adventure. David could have thought of his life as an average life. It's just another day, just doing this. And his brothers, it's just another day where you go to the battlefield for 40 days, hear the same thing. And I'm just going to go back to my tent and cry and change my pants. And then I'm going to go back out here another day. And we get caught in that cycle, don't we? Just another day. Why am I even here? I'm just trying to get through the day. And then I'm going to get through that day. Try to get through that one. Then I'm going to go to church and try to get through that one. It's just another day. But there is something that's happening around you. God did not have to wake you up today. Something I hear all the time. Why isn't the same God, Matt, do miracles then? The fact that you're sitting here is a miracle. You are alive and breathing, and what are you doing with the time that you've been given, with the adventure that God has presented to you? Your life is an adventure. It's an amazing story, especially when you have Christ in your life who rescued you from death, from sin, so that you can look forward to heaven by just believing in him. Your life is an adventure that you get to go and share with other people to join you on this journey. And we waste it. Because we look at the obstacles and we give up and we walk away and we say, oh, that's not for me, that's not me, I don't want to be like that, or I don't feel like doing this today. But imagine if David did that, we would not be sitting here the same way we are right now. And now check this out. Another obstacle he had. Remember, he went to go see his brothers. So in verse 28, but when David's oldest brother, Eliab, heard David talking to the men, he was angry. What are you doing around here anyways, he demanded. What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. I picture him with this little baby, like spoiled brat voice. You just want to see the battle. Go back to your shepherds. And David just says this, what have I done now, punk? No, he doesn't say that. What have I done now, David replied. I was only asking a question. He walked over. There was another obstacle. He could have argued with his brother. Do you argue with your siblings? Yes, you do. Some of you that don't have siblings, you argue with mom and dad. Anytime someone tries to say, what are you doing here? Oh, yeah, I'm going to block you on Instagram and unfollow you. Yeah. We try to get even with it, but David had another obstacle. He could have argued with his brother. And sometimes, listen to this, students, sometimes when you are on the right path because you woke up and you saw God has something special for you and you don't want to miss out, when you're on the right path doing the right thing, the enemy will try to distract you and get you not focusing on where God's trying to take you. He wants to distract you from where God is trying to take you. He could have argued with his brother. That was a distraction, and sometimes we fight the wrong enemy. Sometimes we fight against who we're supposed to be fighting for. And David, what did he do? He walked away because he knew who the real enemy was. He walked away, and because of that, now they brought him to the king. Now the king checks out this dude, and he's like, finally, someone's going to fight this guy. That's not me. Let me bring in this brave warrior, and here comes this little David. This little teenage mutant ninja shepherd, dude, I'm telling you. And he's like, you can't fight. You can't do it. You're too young. But listen to David's response. I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. Listen, I've seen like crazy wild animal attacks, like tigers and stuff. Don't ask me why I look at that stuff. It just sometimes pops on my feed and I'm like, right? When the animal turns on David, he grabs it by the jaw and beats it to death. Now, I would run away from a lion or a bear, and especially if I saw him dragging lamb chop away, I'd be like, oh, see you later. I got these other 99 over here. Woo, pretend like I didn't see that. There's no way I'm going after that bear or that lion. But David had an obstacle, and he went for the adventure because God has been putting him in these places all along, and he's seen how God's been faithful and has had his back time and time again. And he saw every day there's an opportunity of God preparing you for something big. And he ran after it, didn't care, grabbed it, got back to it. He was ready for what's next, God. I'm ready. He took the opportunity in the fields that he was in, literally. And he knew that God was trying to get him ready for something, and it was for this. Because when God protected him, was faithful through those things, he didn't see Goliath as a Goliath. He saw him as a man that was making fun of God. And when everyone else was standing still in fright, David was moving forward. God wants us to move. He does not want you to sit around doing nothing with your life. There's so many people to tell about Jesus, to bring them to church, to be on this adventure with you, to go and see who God is putting all around you, and you don't want to miss it. There's so many times we give in to the inner voice of fear rather than the voice of truth. God wants you to move and get going. Don't just stop where you're at and say, well, God, I'm ready for you to show me what you want in my life. I'm waiting. It's going to present itself on a silver platter and fall into my lap. You got to get moving. You want to see what God has for you and the amazing adventure he has for you? Move your feet. You got to get moving. When everyone else stood, they were afraid and gave into that fear. But David said, I'm ready for the adventure because I got the voice of truth with me. And he is right there with you too. The same God that's right there with David, that has the perfect timing to set him up for this great and mighty conquer, is the same God that's got your back right now. And he's got something amazing in store for you, but you got to look around and see why he woke you up today. What is he trying to show you? I'm going to close with this story of how I've seen this in my own life. When COVID happened in 2020, I was waking up every day when the world was like, what's going on? I wanted to do something. I was tired of people complaining. I was tired of students not going to church because everything was closed. I just wanted to be with people. And there was this prayer I said in my car. We had this thing where we had church on the lawn. It was this baseball field. And we had church out this baseball field. And what we had to do, we had to bring these lawn chairs and sit them all on the grass, and you had to be a certain feet apart, and all that stuff. And so here I go, I'm driving, and on my drive, I want to challenge you students to pray this and say, God, what is it you have for me today? And help me to see it and go do it. Use me today. And maybe the adventure and timing that he has for you today is that you walk through these doors. Some of you in here, whether you know Jesus or don't, I want you to know that Jesus came here. He died for you. He loves you so much. He died for you exactly where you're at. No matter the things that you've done, the bad things that you think are so horrible that you've done in the past. I've done things too. And Jesus found me exactly where I'm at. And he rescued me. And he did the same thing for you. He died, but our God lives. He rose again. He conquered death, the power sin has over you. And when we put our faith and trust in him, we have an eternity to look forward to in heaven. There's hope, and his name is Jesus. And when I woke up, got in my car, and I said, Lord, what is it you have for me today? Help me to see it and go do it. Now, when you ask God to use you, be ready to be used because his timing you don't want to miss. So we got to the field, and I got my chair, and I'm all by myself, and there's a lot of people. And I'm sitting there in the middle of the service. Imagine right now in the middle of the service. Right now, you just felt this, Matt, get up and go wait behind the fence. That would be weird if you felt that. You'd be like, what is this? Go wait behind the fence. Like, what is this? Right now, like, that's what he's doing. He felt that, and he's going to go out there and wait behind the fence. He's like, okay, I'm doing it. Okay, Matt. He just prayed it, and he's like, that worked fast. So I got up in the middle of this field, and there's people still sitting. I just walked. Like, this is so weird. This is so weird. And I stood behind the fence. I'm like, okay, now what? What do I do? It was just this still thing. I just waited. I waited for 30 minutes. Then the service was finally over, and people start getting up, and they're going to their cars, and I'm like, am I missing out on something? What am I doing right now? This is kind of weird. And I saw people, and I love talking to people, meeting people, greeting people, and there were people I wanted to go see, but every time I look at someone, it was like, nope, not yet, not yet. I'm like, what do you mean? And then all of a sudden, I saw this girl and her mom walking by. And this girl, she used to serve in my ministry with me. And I recognized her. And I was so excited. I was like, hey, how's it going? And I remember her dad wasn't a believer. I remember her telling me her dad wasn't a believer. And she was with her mom. I was so excited to see them at church, especially during COVID. I was like, this is so cool. How are you guys doing? And she shared her life with me, and I found something out. There was something really dark going on at home. And this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have heard this if I wasn't there. I wouldn't have been there if I didn't ask God to prepare me to be there. I wouldn't have been there if I didn't say yes to God. So I stood there and I heard something was going on at home, and I was like, oh, do you want us to go over there and pray over that? They're like, you guys do that? I was like, we'll go do it. So I brought me and two pastors. We went over to the house. Her dad was there, and he saw these pastors come in here, and he's like, oh, what's this? And so we prayed over this house. There were some spiritual things going on in the house. So we prayed over this house, and the dad's watching this. And he's like, what are they doing? So we walk around, and we prayed over the house, and we left. That was it. And from that point on, it's so cool God worked. Their house had so much peace in it. The dark stuff that was in there stopped happening. And sometimes that's how God works. It's just amazing how he does these miracles. He still does them. And so what happened was the dad saw this, and he realized there was this peace in his life for once. And he started coming to church. And then I got a phone call to come out here to Surprise, Arizona, to be a youth pastor out here. I was really excited about that. I'm like, this is cool. The day before I leave. No, it's okay. The day before I leave. Because the day before I leave, the dad reaches out to me. And he gave his life to the Lord, and I got to baptize him the day before I left. Isn't that amazing? You don't want to miss out what God has for you. His timing is phenomenal. Look at what's around you. Don't waste your life and your time right now. He woke you up today. He's ready for the adventure. Are you ready to say yes to him and see what timing he has around you? Lord, thank you so much for these students. Thank you for the leaders that are here. Lord, I ask for wisdom as we go into small groups, and that we go out and we do things. We see the timing of why you woke us up, why you brought us here to hear these things, and that we go and we tell our friends to join us on this adventure. Even bring them to church so they can hear about the hope that is found in your name. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
What did you get out of tonight's message?
To trust God's timing and that to move when he wants you to move.
God's timing is always the best.
Barbara!
Mrs. Perlman, please tell me what you learned from tonight's message.
That God has timing for everything, and we have to look for the opportunities he's given us.
That was amazing. Back up. What did you get out of tonight's message?
Tonight's message, it was really good.
It was good.
I just know that, we don't have to hide anymore. Sorry, I don't know.
You're hiding? Well, Jesus will find you.
So I learned to never be afraid, no matter what situation you're in, no matter how much your stress is. Always be yourself. Always get out. Always do what you think you need to do, or do what you think God wants you to do.